Welcome, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are now watching the instant reaction video to Dark Side in the Ring season finale based on Owen Hart. I am your host, Neeson from THS Wrestling. Soon we'll be joined by our friend and friend of THS Wrestling, Justin, aka the Wrestling Classic, and also Canada's own, to help break down what we just seen. Such a tough watch. Such a tough man. And so he's going to shed his lights and opinions on it. But we really want to get your thoughts and your opinions on the Dark Side of the Ring. If you caught it now, and if you're catching this after we're live, because right now we're live on YouTube and we're live on Facebook. Shout out Thomas in the chat right now. We definitely want to get you guys in the chat. And if you haven't seen it yet, hop in the chat. I mean, we all know what happened. What's up, Matthew? I am riding solo today. Justin, aka That Wrestling Classic, will be on shortly. We just want to get an instant reaction of yours and ours from the Dark Side of the Ring's Owen Hart. It was, if you haven't watched it yet, it was a tough watch. Me being an Owen fan when I was a kid, especially him being in the Nation, and even after that, the Blue Blazer really caught my eye as well. As a kid, this is a time where everybody was into wrestling. And so just to see them break that down and just how much of a family man he was, which we already knew. Like, if you're a real wrestling fan, and I would say real wrestling fan, but a hardcore wrestling fan, you know how Owen meant something to you, those nugget chants and all those things, man. And just watching that season finale was a tough thing, man. They really finished strong. So shout out to the makers of A Dark Side of the Ring, and can't wait to see what they have for season 3. But I think Jericho really brought it on the narrative work. But we are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. Please hop in the chat. Let us know what you think. Again, if you haven't seen it, just tell your opinions of Owen Hart and what he means to you as a wrestling fan, if you have any. Or if you don't, then about the stories about Owen Hart. So hop in the chat. This conversation is just for us wrestling fans to get an instant reaction of the Dark Side of the Ring, Owen Hart. It was deep. Again, Justin will be in, aka That Wrestling Classic, shortly. Canadian's own, by the way, and he definitely is a Hart fan. Bret Hart is his favorite wrestler of all time, so I can't wait to get his thoughts on this. But when I tell you, when they showed that blood on the mat, and we all heard the stories, if you've been a fan for a long time, about him, people seeing him falling, and just how devastating it was, and then Vince put it on the show after that, and the wife suing, and why he had never been in. We just learned Owen Hart would never be in a Hall of Fame, guys. So I think that's up to us to stop pushing for him to be in a Hall of Fame. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think the wife should let Owen Hart be represented by, as in her words, the company that took him away from them? Or do you think that, hey, let's let bygones be bygones? Everything about Owen Hart was pure. Absolutely, man. Owen Hart was he was a light. It was definitely pure. You've seen it from everybody talking about him. You've seen it from the footage. It was, man, it was a tough watch, man. It really was, Nathan. I don't know if you watched it, but it was one of those things, especially now, like, with the unfortunate news, and I know Justin's going to talk about this. So the unfortunate news about Chad, Shad, it's a, I met him a couple times. So just for this to follow that really hit me. And it was really hard to get through, to be honest. Let's see. Michael says, Blue Blazer was a huge favorite when I was a kid. Me too, man. I feel you. Also love what he did later on. Same thing. At the last few minutes of the Dark Side of the Ring now, it was tough. Vince looks like, yes, man. That's okay. So Vince looked like, my thoughts on the World Wrestling Federation in that time. My thoughts now, as a fan of not only this business, but a fan of that company. The company that helped produce the idols that I looked up to as a kid and the people that I respect so highly now. It's moments like this, right? Like, I don't know if it's best just as a business to take fault at that time. Do you just take fault, own up, and just pay it off? Or is it because they maybe didn't have the money to pay it off? But what about now? Like, how do you make amends? Because I feel like we all know that Vince McMahon is creeping up in age. And I just feel like somehow, some way, this needs to be made amends before the end. But how does one do that when they hired a different rigging company? Like somebody needs to take fault, and nobody wants to take fault. And that's the issue, right? And as a grieving widow, and as a grieving son, and as a grieving daughter, you want somebody to take fault. But enough of me blabbering about how I feel. Let's bring in our guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Canadian's own Justin, aka the Wrestling Classic, ladies and gentlemen.
Canadian's own, that's me. Canada's own. Oh wait, this is backwards. There it is. What's going on?
You're good, man. You're a little laggy, but we're gonna push through it.
We're good, man. We'll be good. Should work. We should be working now.
Yeah, we're good, man. But yeah, tell us. I know you just got done watching it.
I don't know how you can watch it and hop right on here and be all bubbly.
I'm not bubbly, bro. Like,
that's
I was
so sad.
I was literally, like, when I started it, I was choking up. Like, just because it's I was talking about how much of a fan I am of not only this business but that company, and to see at the end how nobody is taking responsibility of their not only a husband or a father, a brother being taken away from negligence. Yeah. And how do we rectify that? Like, how does this company now rectify it and say, I know it's been years past, but like, I'm sorry, like what happens? Like, how do you do that?
They're gonna ignore it. Let's start off with that. Like, they've ignored everything else that's been on Dark Side of the Ring. It's an old issue that in Vince's mind is probably resolved and done with and in the past, as negative as that sounds. But it's not in the past. It's not in the past for the Hart family. It's not in the past for Oj and Athena and Martha, Owen's immediate family, his wife and his kids. And that's the crappy part. And I think that happens with a lot of big corporations at WWE, where to them that was something that happened. I think a lot of people are disheartened and heard about it. But as a company, I think they've moved on, and that it sucks because now we as fans, and this is the problem, we as fans feel like we just got an inside look of what really happened and the clip and all this, and we're like, whoa, what the hell? Like, that's so much more messed up than we've ever actually known. But it's so far, they already knew that back then. They've already dealt with all of this. It's the stuff they knew, and that Hart family, we didn't know. We're mad now. We might want to be like, what the hell, there needs to be justice for this. But they've already had this conversation. There's already been a settlement. This is just an expose for the fans to get an inside look at what actually happened in detail and video form. I'm sure it's been written in books and talked about on podcasts. But this is the first time we got to like see, like, whoa, like the police photos of the ring and the height.
Man, that was one of the first things I mentioned about the blood being on this canvas and them continuing to wrestling on it. Mm-hmm. Like that hurt. Like I don't, and I get, I come from entertainment. I get the show must go on, but like she said, they knew he was dead. It's instantly a murder scene, crime scene. Somebody died there. They need to figure out what happened. That should have been the one time that this thing has been, the show has been postponed, stopped, and should investigate it right then and there. Anything after that is tampering.
No, 100%. And I can see how that would have been an argument in court for sure. Like, why did they continue using the ring? This was a crime scene, which then I'm like, and then in a sense, you think of it, it kind of is. Mostly when somebody died, like, okay, everything should stop. Someone died here. Like, we need to investigate how this happened. I think it is very easy to play devil's advocate. It is very easy to be like, well, this is a rushing show. This is a form of entertainment. There was a stunt went wrong, and he fell, and he passed away, and it's easy to be like, well, that's what happened. We know what happened. But then when you have someone that does investigate and go into it and like I said, the clip thing was surprising to me because I'm like, if you saw they had him harnessed the first few times he did it, where he was fully harnessed in and like connected to the thing, to what they tried to do that last time, you're like, yeah, why didn't they just harness him again? Was it a matter of like, oh, visually looked bad? Because I can see that. I can see how like, oh, that looks like, you know, he's harnessing down on art. Like it visually does kind of look like not what you probably want for television, right? And you know that's true. Like I always used to joke around about that with when Sting would come down. I'm like, why doesn't anybody rush Sting while he's taking off all of his stuff? You know what I mean? Like,
it's like the Power Rangers when like they're sitting there doing morphin and like all the evil villains are just staring at them. Like
so I get it if you're trying to look at it from from the wrestling bubble and trying to be logical and probably how they thought of it.
Right.
But these are real human beings, and for safety precautions, if you haven't properly tested that out of that clip, and you know they're like, oh, don't tug on this rope, and then you have to also realize this guy's wearing a cape. There's so many other things that could have tugged on that rope. There's so many other things that could have opened that clip. Like, was it really the safest decision? It was hard, man.
Yeah, it was, man. And just before we go on, shout out to Pingo and Johnny and producer Junior and Jimmy and everybody else that's watching this doc that couldn't join the stream right now, but we're all feeling the same. Like we're all feeling shook as wrestling fans because nothing positive came out of this besides a family has found the strength to move on from such a tragic loss and their father and husband being ripped away from them and no real closure behind it. That's the only thing. Besides that is like the company still went on. You know, it's oh well, we want him to be in a Hall of Fame, but it's on the family. You know, that's up to the wife. And
I was on the he should be in the Hall of Fame boat, but then after hearing what they said, I'm like, I get it.
Same. Yeah,
I get it.
Actually, Nathan in the comments said, as a fan, I want to see him in the Hall of Fame, but as a Hart family member, I understand why they don't want him in. And I completely agree. Like after that, I was like, you will not hear me say Owen Hart should be in the Hall of Fame.
And do you know that's been surfacing around on the internet for the past few days of Martha, where she said on Jericho's podcast, and honestly, it's true. And I think that was the reason why even Macho Man held out on going to the Hall of Fame for so long, and because he wanted to go in with his entire family. But you know, after he passed away, Lanny said, "Yeah, let's put him in," and whatnot. Different story, different situation. But it always came back down to that one thing of like, how much does the Hall of Fame really matter? There isn't a place. There isn't an actual Hall of Fame. It really is. There's two ways to look at it. Yeah, it's a TV show to make money and profit off of the likeness of the person they're putting in the Hall of Fame and whatnot. And also it is a place for people within the fraternity, the wrestling fraternity, the wrestlers, the people to show appreciation and praise to a peer of theirs. There's a couple of things when it comes to Owen Hart. One, he's not there to attend the Hall of Fame to be praised by his peers. So that's like not a thing that we should really, or even as fans, like we can pay adulation to him without him going into the Hall of Fame, and we can continue to do that as much as we want. He doesn't need to go to that Hall of Fame with the company where he pretty much sacrificed his life for. And I understand that. In different situations, like the Hall of Fame is cool when someone's alive and they get to go in, because then it is, yeah, you're getting praise from your peers and the people you work with and your hard work, and it's a moment. But if that's not the case, and it really is just a show for them to, you know, profit off your likeness and sell Owen Hart Hall of Fame merchandise and do this and that and hopefully get to sign them to a Legends deal. They don't want none of that. I understand why they don't want none of that. They don't want to be involved with that company.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Hall of Fame is such a tricky thing. I think it's like with any sports Hall of Fame. And yes, I'm using wrestling in sports terms. With any sports Hall of Fame, it's a way to commemorate a lifetime of focus and dedication that you put in to get it to a professional level, to be able to make money off of set, but not only that, to be able to connect to the fans that come out and pay. Right. Yeah. So with wrestling, with WWE not having a physical Hall of Fame place, you know, they're basically just, it is more of a brotherhood, but it's more of a fan thing. But Owen Hart being left out for so long has always been like, it's one of those names where is it justified? Because Owen Hart, you know, Edge went in the year after he retired the first time. Owen Hart should have went in a year after he passed, because of the, like, everybody knew that not only the potential talent of this man, but also how he was a game changer and he was just ahead. He, like Jericho said, in '99, about less than a year or about a year after that, you had Edge, you had Christian, you had the Hardys, you had
Malenko,
Jericho, Malenko, and Guerrero, Jericho, all coming into the WWE. They all would have been there, and that would have changed the face of wrestling history because those guys would have been able to keep up with him. He was just in a league where he was in a time where only his brother, basically could keep up with him.
And his brother couldn't even do some of the stuff he did. Bret wasn't a high flyer. Bret wasn't doing somersaults over people. I love Bret. Obviously, I grew up. Here's the perfect perspective, man. I'm a Canadian kid, man. When they talk about the Hart family being royalty here in Canada, that's 110% true. Are they royalty wrestling? Yeah, but they're royalty to Canada. Am I shocked that thousands of people showed up at his funeral just to stand there and show him love? No, because mostly in Calgary, where that family is actually from, they are beloved. Yeah. And growing up a Canadian kid, man, Bret and Owen are my shit. That's why I always put Bret before Shawn. That's why I'll always put, I have this adulation for Owen Hart being the younger brother. I have an older brother. I know what it's like to be the younger brother. I know what it's like to be Owen, when I first started watching wrestling, I always say 96 was like the first year I actually remember watching it on TV. Camp Cornette, man, Owen, Bulldog, Vader, like I could never hate Owen Hart, man. The guy was hilarious. He was one of a kind.
Yeah.
And my point being is it would have been amazing if you got to work with those guys because nobody was at his speed. Nobody was at his pace. Owen versus Eddie, just imagine that. Owen versus Jericho. Owen versus Kurt Angle. It was all ready for him to go. The only other guy in the same league as him potentially that was in the WWF at the same time was Brian Pillman, who was injured himself and couldn't do half the stuff that he was known for doing when he was Flying Brian.
Facts.
It's just a bummer, man, to think that like what we could have had all over, an accident like that.
Yeah. Aubrey actually says the all-time favorite matchup was Owen versus Bret at WrestleMania 10. Now, when they replayed that back and they showed the overhead camera, that image was incredible. I don't think I ever I watched that match. I don't remember seeing that clip or that shot in the actual live match. And I know that it's either they call it the Wile E. Coyote shot.
Yeah.
But it's somebody that hates it. It's either Kevin Dunn or Vince that hates that shot. But what I will say, especially in a time like now, they need to bring that shot back because when they had the exchange, it was incredible. That was incredible. What did you think about that?
I was gonna also say for people that are listening to this and their own Hart fans, I just finished a show with Scotty Mack and we're talking about actually Bret and Owen. But Owen Hart, if you guys want to watch a really good Owen Hart match, a lot of people forget about this match because it happened on Monday Night Raw. If you were alive during the time, you definitely remember it. It's one of my favorite Owen Hart matches. That didn't happen at a WrestleMania or a pay-per-view or something. It's Owen Hart versus British Bulldog. It happened, I believe, in February or March or May of 1997 on Raw. It was the finals of the European Championship, to crown the European champion, the first ever European champion. It was British Bulldog versus Owen Hart. Go watch that match as soon as you can. Even after you get off here, just go watch that match. Search it up on the network. Finals of the European title. It's on Daily Motion. I posted on my page a bunch of times. You might have saved it. Go watch it again. One of my favorite matches of all time.
So I was looking at the comments.
Go ahead. Can I ask you a question? How do you feel about how the Hart family reacted when Martha finally made the lawsuit? And some of them trying to show their loyalty towards Vince in a family affair.
So it's tough, man. And I'm
keep
a
in
person
mind
that's
that
always putting.
Also, keep in mind that Vince screwed Bret like 2 years before that.
Bret. Yeah. So it's tough because I'm always a fan. I mean, I'm always a fan. I'm always putting myself in the shoes of the opposite person, always. And so, see, as me putting my shoes into a Bret Hart family member, and you look at this company that is going to be around, and that they help your anytime that family member before, you can always funnel through and get money through that. Now, if you attacked it, that's why I was wondering about like why did they not take responsibility and pay? Is it because the money was the axe was too high and that would have bankrupted the company? Like, what was the issue? Because for you to go against your own family, it has to be like that's for like livelihood and future. Like that's the only reason I could come up with. Because yeah, he screwed Bret just 2 years before that. But also, if you look at all the Bret interviews, Bret was
like a dad.
Yeah, Bret was hurt and not mad. He was more hurt. And when you're hurt, it's a thing of like, I'm willing to talk to you. I could get over this because I'm not mad. Like I'm just hurt. And let's have a conversation about this. Let's air out our grievances. And I just think growing up in the circus, aka wrestling, a family business, a family traveling entertainment business, and marrying a person that's not from it, your thoughts it's different.
Yeah.
Like if he would have married a person inside of the wrestling business, we probably would be having a different discussion.
100%.
That Dark Side of the Ring wouldn't have been on there. But personally, how I feel, I would never go against my family, because I know that, hey man, you have to do what you have to do.
But there's two things, because I understand that because they're a wrestling family and Vince is at that point in time, you know, yeah, WCW's around and stuff, but he was the godfather of wrestling basically, and there wasn't many other places to work, and there was opportunity. And Vince had been very good to that family for how many years? When Bret was there since 1980 something, Bulldog and Anvil came back and forth so many times, and I get it looking at it from that, but then it almost makes you think, did this family forget that there's a world outside wrestling?
No, that's all they knew.
Which is crazy, because then you could tell on the other side, I got really like, because obviously like when you think of legacies and wrestling families, it's always cool to be like, oh, Cowboy Bob Orton, then came Randy Orton, Rocky Johnson, then came The Rock. So, you know, and we've seen it like, oh, you know, there's Harry Smith, son of British Bulldog, and it's always cool to see that second or third generation superstar. We saw Mark Henry in his Hall of Fame speech say, oh, do you deserve to be here? Your dad, da, da, da. And then at the end when they're like, oh, just a lawyer, and Athena's a journal, and I kind of felt happy. I'm like, thank God. Thank God. I don't know and I'm the biggest wrestling fan in the world. I'm never gonna stop loving wrestling. But I'm like, thank God you guys didn't fall in love with it. Because I understand your feelings, you know?
Yeah, the daughter said about like, you know, wrestling took him away. And it's like, yeah, it did, but it also gave him your dad. Like your dad wouldn't be your dad without professional wrestling.
Being younger too, I think she was probably more influenced by her mom's emotions and feelings than Oj. I think Oj is 100% on his mom's side, but he also understands as the older one, like, hey, well, that he did that to provide for us, to give us the life we had, but then it took him away from us. Well, I just think so, being the stubborn younger daughter, was probably just like, well, no, it was wrestling. Wrestling did this. If you never wrestled, this would never have happened, which is true. It's true, but like that it's also true, but you wouldn't have what set you guys up. Yeah. And allowed them to give birth to you and feel like they were financially stable to do so. And,
right.
And I know, fun fact, I know that she hates wrestling because I found her on Instagram years ago and I dropped her a follow, blocked right away.
Wow.
I still follow she's cool. He's all right. But found Athena. And then I asked for someone in the Hart family, and I don't know who's listening to this. Hopefully, no one in the Hart family. I'm not trying to like gossip, but I asked somebody in the Hart family that I'm very close to, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she hates wrestling. She probably saw your name, the Wrestling Classic, and was like, block."
Well, yeah, because you're young, you had your dad snatched away from you due to wrestling. I get it. I completely get it. It sucks, man. But one thing I know a lot of people are at least Billy Ray Valentine shared his favorite Owen Hart match was him and Bret at SummerSlam was his favorite Bret match, and my favorite Bret match was him and Bulldog at Wembley Stadium. So I do remember that, and I know watching it as a kid. So that was the time where I rented tapes from, and I actually rented that SummerSlam tape, and watching it after the fact, because I didn't watch it in 92, like watching it after the fact, I was like, wow, like this was the energy you felt it jump off the screen. Yeah. And that is one of my favorite matches as well. So guys, if we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook. We're only going to be here for about 5 more minutes. Just wanted to get a quick reaction to get Canada's own, the Wrestling Classic, Justin up here, and share his thoughts on it. So please share your thoughts on the Dark Side of the Rings season finale, Owen Hart. Your favorite Owen matches, what Owen means to you. I know when I first think of Owen Hart, I think of 2 things. I think of Nugget, and I think of the time where he dressed up as Triple H with the Nation and DX. He dressed up as Triple H and DX, man, and he was going around. Oh man, what was the imposter's name? What was the imposter's
Sensation.
name? Jason Sensation. I am not a Nugget. I am not a Nugget.
For me, Owen was Bret's younger brother, the jealous younger brother. He was 2 Slammy Awards. He was jealous of everybody. He was the funniest bad guy, but he was a bad guy. He cut his voice was just unique. He was, I did it all by myself. I don't want to thank nobody. Yes. It was me. Woo! Like, that's Owen Hart, you know. He just was I just vibed with him so much, and that's one of those things. Like, as a kid, I hated him because he was a bad guy. Then I got older, and I was watching those tapes as I got older, and I'm like, yo, man, I love this guy. And out of that whole crop, like, he was like, I'll even go as far as going wrong. My connection with Bret's different because Bret was like my idol. I wanted to be Bret Hart. He was like Canadian cool. He was Fonzie of Canada. Like, he was the definition of cool. You want to be Bret. But I'll go as far as saying, if you really boil it down, if you want to talk about what modern wrestling is today, Owen was a better wrestler than Bret. Bret was a great storyteller.
Absolutely.
But Owen could probably wrestle circles around Bret, story or not. And it's just, I don't know, man. I did hate the end of Owen's career. I wasn't a fan of him in the Nation. I wasn't a fan of what was going on right before he passed away. I remember that. I felt like he should have went to WCW with his brother or something, but I'm an Owen fan.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that, like, about the Slammy Awards. I know Nathan on YouTube says, when I think of Owen, first image walking around with the 2 Slammies. So I agree, and I remember that. Like, I do remember that, and I never looked at Owen as maybe because, like you say, I was a little brother. And
yeah.
Well, I still am a little brother. But I just looked at him like, yeah, like, you get yours, man. You show us what you got. I know Jamerson over at Facebook says Owen Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the Intercontinental Champion at SummerSlam 1997 is my favorite. That, man,
you broke Austin's neck. How was that your favorite match?
Man, you know what? But that match sticks in me because I remember it was one of those moments where it broke. Like, I didn't know if wrestling was real or not. Like, I knew it wasn't 100% real just because I used to be like, why is they letting him kick him when he's down? But it was one of those moments watching it live, like, wait, what? And then he rolled him up, and then he really didn't, like, he just laid there, like, kind of flagged his legs, and I was like, wait, what just happened? It was just that moment, like, what just happened? So I get why that could be somebody's favorite, because it could really stand out in somebody's mind. And that changed Austin forever. Like, that, without that, we don't get Austin who we got. Nathan again on YouTube says, I remember in your house when they made Owen a manager for the night.
Oh my God. Have you ever heard Owen on commentary? There's a couple of in your house and stuff when Owen's on commentary. I think a couple of Raws too. So funny. I do want to point a couple of things out about Dark Side of the Ring. I do wish this was longer. I heard that there is, if you watch it after the fact, there's going to be a little bit more to it. Martha said on Jericho's podcast where they show more about, like, Owen's prankster comedy funny side, because a lot of stories we hear about Owen is his ribs and how he used to mess with people. We didn't get a lot of that in this because it was a 1-episode show. I think this could have also gone 2 episodes like the Benoit one did. Like the Benoit one, they spent a whole episode just describing who he was and coming into wrestling, and then the murder a lot in the 2nd episode. I think they could have done something similar with this, where they could have spent a lot of who Owen was. Because let's be honest, if we're going to be, like, realistic here, like, when is the next time we're going to hear from Martha and both his kids talking about him in his wrestling career? It's probably never going to happen again, let's be honest. Unless that's some sort of, like, Owen Hart foundation fundraiser or something, we're not going to hear them talk about it. This was probably like a one-off. We might hear Martha talk about it again. We may hear Oates talk about it again. I can almost promise you the fact that how little she was shown in the documentary, we're never going to hear Athena talk about her dad and her wrestling career probably ever again. And I just wish it, yeah, I didn't even say anything to her. But I'm like, I'm already following the rest of the Hart family. What's the harm? Oh shit! But I understand why. I'm not offended, but like, I wish this was longer. I wish we got to see more about like just Owen and his character and his personality. Because I feel like for people that were non-wrestling fans, that might have been tuning into Dark Side of the Ring because they saw it on Vice or they watched it on Crave here in Canada. If they're not huge wrestling fans, I feel like they didn't really get to know who Owen was in this. They got to kind of, but they didn't really get to know who Owen was in this episode if you didn't already know. That was kind of a bummer. And now I'm going to do something that might not be the most popular thing. I am going to go and vouch for Vince a little bit because I don't believe anyone's perfect. I honestly, genuinely don't think that show should have went on. But once it did, what are you supposed to do after the fact?
No. I
you
agree.
have to admit your mistake, and you have to roll with the punches. And when I saw him being so aggressively angry at that lady that asked a question, I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, yo, man, why are you being so mad? And then there's also a part of me that's like, you ever mess up in life and just wish it would kind of like go away? And,
well, also,
a big mess up, and then it just keeps coming back up, and you're just like,
you gotta think at this. You gotta think at this time. This is the height of the Attitude Era. Yeah. So this is after the steroid trial. This is after when they were coming at him for the FCC. This is after all these things.
The screw job. After he supposedly helped Jimmy Snuka get away from murder.
Oh, murder! This is a lot. This is a lot. So then
if there was a movie on Vince McMahon's life,
well, there's supposed to be with.
It'd be wild. No, but even if there is, it's probably going to be produced by the WWE and it's going to be hiding a whole bunch of real truth.
No. It needs to be a rated MA for mature on like Netflix. But before we get out of here, I know we're wrapping up. Again, you're watching an instant reaction video of the Dark Side of the Ring, Owen Hart, the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring. They did a great job of bookending it with the top, with Chris Benoit, bookending it with Owen. They keep you interested in the middle. You have episodes like World Warriors. You have episodes like the guy. What was the guy that slapped old boy?
The David Schultz slapping John Stossel. There's an episode on Dino Bravo getting murdered.
Yeah.
There was an episode. There's a lot of good episodes. The Road Warriors is one of my least favorite, but
there are a lot. But
can I ask you one question?
Watching instant reaction video.
Do you think there's room for a season 3?
Absolutely. So actually, somebody in the chat said season 3 they should do. Let me find the comment. I read it and I pinned it in my head that I was going to bring it up towards the end. Where is the comment? Season 3. Okay, I'm gonna find it eventually. But while I try to find it, I want to ask you as we head out of here is, what wrestlers do you see Owen Hart in today?
What do you mean?
Like who the impact that Owen Hart is making? Yeah, yes.
I think a lot, man. I think a lot.
Anybody that I know, for me, instantly it jumps out is Sami Zayn.
I see Owen Hart and Sami Zayn. I see Owen Hart in Tyson Kidd when he was wrestling. I see some Owen Hart influence there. I see Owen Hart in. I don't think I see Owen Hart in him. I just know he's such a big Owen Hart fan, and that's Kevin Owens. Like that's something that I just he named his kid Owen. He loved Owen Hart. There was Owen Hart influence in Chris Jericho. I know he's like a veteran now and he's his own person now. Like Chris Jericho is Chris Jericho. But if you look at early Chris Jericho, there's some Owen Hart there.
He said he wanted to be in a tag team with him, right?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of I see a little bit of that. I see a lot of Owen in a lot of the Canadian wrestlers, and I don't know if that's just a Canadian thing. And I look at a Young Edge, or I look at the Singh brothers, or I look at people that were wrestled here in the Pacific Northwest. They got that athleticism that Owen Hart had, that doing things that you don't think a guy that size can do. I I see Owen in a lot of younger stars. It's just I think there's a lot of stars that never got the opportunity to meet him. You know?
Yeah, man. I think that's to me that's the real hurt part, because you see a lot of guys that were influenced by him that would never not only be able to meet him but never be in a ring with him. So I found what I was talking about. So Aubrey James, all-time favorite matchup is Owen. Oh no, that's not it. Wait, where is it at? I just saw it.
Already?
Yeah, no, it's like I just saw it. But it was about Pat Patterson and a sexual harassment in season 3. Nathan brought it up. So Nathan said,
"Who's going to talk about that? Pat's too revered, man. Revered. People love him. No one's going to come out of the basket and talk about Pat Patterson.
Man,
you have to get Jim Ross to do it. Maybe Jim Cornette if you pay him enough."
Didn't they talk about the plane ride from hell? They did not talk about it? No. So Jamerson says they should do the plane ride from hell in season 3.
Alberto Del Rio. I commented that after he got arrested.
Oh, wow. 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 I mean, there's so many Dark Side of the Ring. So, matter of fact, just a quick side story. One of my good friends, my producing partner, actually, he randomly found Dark Side of the Ring on Vice, and he hit me at like 2:00 in the morning one time. He's like, "Bro, I just binge watched this show, Dark Side of the Ring, and I didn't know it was so many embedded stories about wrestling." And I was just like, "Yeah, man, it's like circus meets the mafia." Like it's real, man.
And it's hard because it is one perspective and one narrative, but you also kind of feel like you trust it a bit more because you know it's not WWE and you're used to WWE propaganda, you know?
Yeah. Michael says he sees him in Breeze, Omega, and Kofi. And when I say that, it's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate.
Breeze is a Canadian kid. Omega's a Canadian kid. Kofi's not a Canadian kid, but I see it. I see it. I see it in him. Yeah. I get where you're coming from. But like I said, I don't know why. When I look at a lot of Canadian wrestlers, it's hard for me not to be like, see a little Bret in this person, see a little Owen in this person. It's kind of like the standard for athletic Canadian wrestlers. I wouldn't say if someone comes in and they're Canadian wrestler and they're jacked to the gills and they're wrestling like Brock Lesnar, I don't think I can say it then. But if they're smaller guys and they're doing springboards off the rope and they're doing submission moves and they're technical wrestlers, it's hard for me not to jump the gun and be like, that's really Bret, that's really Owen in him.
All right, man, look, I kept you for long enough, and we have to go get our emotions in check after the week that we've had, and also following this Dark Side of the Ring, and it's only Tuesday. So I just want to say, man, positive energy is a blessing. Please follow. I have no idea. Watch. You know what you're going to watch on Tuesdays? You're going to watch Backstage with the great Renee Young and sometimes Natalia and Booker T and Christian, which is another great Canadian on there.
Punk when he shows up.
And CM and when it's CM Punk when he shows up.
I think I'll go back to Backstage. It's hard to watch anything when they're out of the studio right now. What you guys can do is watch my casual conversations. Every Tuesday, I'll drop a new one just for you guys.
Hey, I was about to say, please follow the Wrestling Classic. His handle's right there. If you guys don't know Justin, aka the Wrestling Classic, it's an amazing page. I've been following it for a while. Please support it. It gives you great content. It lifts you up when you can. He has casual conversations with some of your favorite wrestlers, some of your favorite personalities, and just amazing people. And it's actually just like a casual conversation. Please follow me at Stay Fly Life, as you see right here. Yep, as you see right there, especially on Wednesdays, I post outrageous things on Wednesdays on my story. And also, please follow us at ths.wrestling on Instagram. I can't stress that enough. Without you guys, we will be nothing. And we appreciate all the wrestling fans that we have. And if you want, I usually do our THS sign-off tag, but we're not going to do that tonight. Tonight, we're just going to say, oh, Pingo! Pingo's here. Shout out Pingo. He said they should do a Brian Pillman season 3.
Pillman would be good. Scott Hall. They can do a Scott Hall in season 3. They can do a Jake Roberts in season 3.
So now that Pingo's here, I have to say it. And for everything trending. So please visit that hashtag show for everything trending in geek pop culture. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Good night.
Do the thing. Dig it.